Captain Mark Goodwin of the U.S. Horizon sat back in his high-back chair, staring at the endless stars stretched across the viewscreen. His fourth deep space mission had been calm, almost too calm. For a human captain, uneventful was good. Uneventful meant safety. Uneventful meant his crew would return home alive. The silence of the bridge was broken by a sudden alert. The console blinked with a strange, irregular pattern. Lieutenant Rodriguez leaned forward, eyes wide. "Captain, I'm picking up an unusual signal at coordinates 227 Mark, 389. Mark straightened in his chair. "Define unusual, Lieutenant." Rodriguez swallowed hard. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen. No Federation signature, no known origin. The wavelength is foreign. Possibly hostile, but I can't be sure yet." Mark's brow furrowed. "Keep monitoring it. Notify me of any changes immediately." Minutes later, a sudden vibration shook the ship. The horizon lurched violently, throwing Mark and a few officers against their chairs. Sparks rained from ruptured conduits above, and alarms screamed across the bridge. Red emergency lights bathed the room in a crimson glow. "Red alert! Battle stations!" Mark shouted. Crew members scrambled, sliding across the deck to their stations as the ship rocked again. The main viewscreen flickered and revealed the source of the attack. Sleek, silver ships, moving with impossible speed. They formed a perfect pentagram around the horizon, their surfaces shimmering like liquid metal. The aliens had arrived and they were ready to strike. Commander Harris, Mark's second in command, wiped blood from a cut above his eye and shouted over the chaos. "Captain, we're outnumbered and outgunned. They're using some kind of gravitational distortion technology. Our shields can't compensate." Mark's mind raced. "Ensign Chin, evasive pattern Delta 6. Rodriguez, maintain sensor focus on all frequencies." The horizon twisted in space, engines straining as inertial dampeners fought to protect the crew. For a brief moment, it seemed the ship might break free. Then a second, more powerful blast hit. Mark was thrown against his chair restraints, air knocked from his lungs. A support beam crashed near Rodriguez, sending her diving to the deck. Smoke and molten metal filled parts of the bridge. Direct hit to the main reactor. Engineer Capper shouted through the comms. "I can hold containment for maybe 3 minutes before we need to eject the core." "Shields at 9%, Harris reported, weapon systems offline. We can't take another hit like that." Mark's eyes swept across the bridge. Every option seemed worse than the last. Escape was impossible and the aliens showed no sign of slowing. His mind needed a plan fast. He took a deep breath and opened a communications channel. "This is Captain Mark Goodwin of the United Earthship Horizon. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration. Please cease your attack and identify yourselves." Silence. The stars reflected on the viewscreen, broken only by the shimmering of alien ships. No response came. "They're scanning us," Rodriguez whispered, blood dripping from her ear. "I think they're preparing something." A strange light suddenly engulfed the bridge. Mark felt a tingling sensation as if every atom of his body was being catalogued individually. His crew seemed to dissolve into particles of light around him. Consciousness slipped away, leaving him in darkness. When Mark awoke, he found himself restrained on a glowing table. Blue energy bands hummed softly around his arms, holding him firmly. The room was pristine white with smooth, curved walls glowing faintly. No doors, no windows, just an alien perfection. Mark muttered under his breath, "Well, this is less than ideal." The silence broke as a doorway formed seamlessly in the wall. A tall, silver-skinned alien stepped through, 7 feet tall, with 6 blinking eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern. Its membrane vibrated and in perfect English it spoke. "Human Captain, you are now property of the Lefraxian Dominion." Mark blinked. "Property? I think there's a mistake." "Irrelevant. Your vessel violated Dominion space. The penalty is servitude," the alien replied evenly. Mark tugged at his restraints. "Where's my crew? What's happening to them?" "Processing. Appropriate assignments based on capability and intellect," the alien said. Its eyes flickered, unreadable. Mark realized the danger was far from over. He was trapped, outnumbered, and surrounded by a species that had no idea what humans were capable of. Somehow he had to survive. Somehow he had to protect his crew. And somehow he had to turn this nightmare into an opportunity. The first contact with the Lefraxians had gone horribly wrong, but for Captain Mark Goodwin the real test had just begun. The horizon groaned as the alien ships continued their relentless assault. Energy beams sliced through the vacuum of space, striking shields and hull with terrifying precision. Sparks erupted across the bridge as warning alarms screamed. Crew members scrambled to control consoles, their faces pale with fear, but determination burned in their eyes. Captain Mark Goodwin gripped the armrests of his chair. "Status," he shouted. Lieutenant Rodriguez's hands flew over her controls. "Shields are failing, Captain. Weapons are offline. The gravitational distortions are tearing our systems apart." Commander Harris wiped blood from his forehead. "They're not just powerful, they're fast and intelligent. Every maneuver we try, they anticipate." Mark's mind raced. The Horizon had been built for exploration, not combat. Yet, despite the odds, he refused to panic. "Engage emergency thrusters. Chin, initiate evasive spirals." The ship lurched violently as the engines roared. Sparks flew across the bridge and a gust of displaced air slammed into the crew. Panels shorted out, showering molten metal. Every second felt like an eternity. Despite the Horizon's desperate maneuvers, the alien fleet remained relentless. Their ships shimmered like liquid silver, executing impossible turns, and gravitational distortions warped the space around them. The Horizon seemed to slow under their invisible grasp. "Captain, they're encircling us," Rodriguez shouted. "We can't break free." Mark knew she was right. Every attempt to evade only brought them closer to capture. The alien ship's coordination was perfect, their technology beyond anything the humans had seen. A massive energy blast struck the Horizon's aft section, throwing the ship into a violent spin. Crew members were thrown against walls and consoles. The ship's alarms reached a deafening crescendo. "Capper, status on the core," Mark shouted. Engineer Capper's voice crackled through the comms, strained. "We're losing containment. 3 minutes max before the core goes critical." Mark gritted his teeth. He had to act fast, but options were running out. They could fight until the end, but resistance seemed hopeless against these technologically superior foes. "Open a channel," he commanded. "Let's see if they'll talk." Rodriguez hesitated, blood dripping from a small cut on her ear. "Channel open, Captain. But they're scanning us, preparing something." Mark leaned forward. "This is Captain Mark Goodwin of the United Earth ship Horizon. We are explorers, not invaders. Cease your attack and identify yourselves." The aliens ignored him. Their ships shimmered, engines humming with alien power, and the Horizon shuddered as if responding to a force unseen. Suddenly, the bridge was bathed in a strange shimmering light. Mark felt a peculiar tingling sensation spread through his body, as if each atom were being catalogued. Around him, crew members dissolved into particles of light. The last thing he saw before consciousness slipped away was the stars and the shimmer of alien vessels. When he awoke, Mark was restrained on a glowing examination table. Energy bands glimmered softly, holding his arms and legs firmly. The room was stark white, curved walls glowing faintly with no doors or windows. The silence was deafening. A doorway appeared seamlessly in the wall, and a tall, silver-skinned alien stepped through. 7 feet tall, with 6 blinking eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern, it radiated calm authority. Its bioluminescent membrane pulsed, and in clear English it spoke. "Human Captain, you are now property of the Lefraxian Dominion. Your vessel violated Dominion space. The penalty is servitude." Mark's jaw tightened. "Property? That's a mistake. We had no idea we were in your territory." "Irrelevant," the alien said. "Ignorance of territorial boundaries does not exempt you from consequences." Mark tugged at his restraints. "Where's my crew? What's happening to them?" "Processing. Assignments based on physical and intellectual capability," the alien replied, emotionless. The captain realized the gravity of the situation. His ship had been captured, his crew taken, and the aliens were far more advanced than he had imagined. Yet even in this moment of despair, a spark of defiance burned inside him. Mark knew he could not fight them directly, his weapons were useless, his ship destroyed, but humans were clever, adaptable, and resourceful. Somewhere in the Lefraxian Dominion, there had to be a way to turn the situation to his advantage. As the alien left the room, the doorway closing seamlessly behind it, Mark took a deep breath. He was trapped, alone, and at the mercy of a powerful and alien intelligence. But one thing was certain: humanity was never easily defeated. The first contact had ended in disaster, but the real story, the test of human cunning, was only beginning. Captain Mark Goodwin slowly opened his eyes. The world around him was pristine, glowing white, and eerily quiet. His arms and legs were restrained by energy bands that hummed softly with a blue light. The table beneath him was smooth, solid, and slightly cold. No doors, no windows, only the seamless walls that curved endlessly. Mark tried to move, but the restraints held him firm. He swallowed and took a deep breath. Panic would do him no good. He had faced impossible odds before, and humans were not known for giving up easily. A soft ripple appeared in the wall. A tall figure emerged, silver-skinned, 7 feet tall, with 6 glowing eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern. Its body shimmered like liquid metal. A thin bioluminescent membrane on its face pulsed rapidly as it spoke in perfect English. "Human Captain, you are now property of the Lefraxian Dominion. Your vessel violated Dominion space. The penalty is servitude." Mark straightened in the glowing light. "Property? That's impossible. We had no idea this was your territory. We are explorers, not invaders." The alien's eyes blinked in rapid, unsynchronized patterns. "Irrelevant. Ignorance of territorial boundaries does not exempt you from consequences." Mark tugged at his restraints. "Where is my crew? What is happening to them?" "Processing. Assignments will be based on your physical abilities and intellectual assessment," the alien said evenly. Its membrane quivered slightly as if considering something. Mark's mind raced. His ship was disabled, his crew captured, and now he was alone, at the mercy of an alien intelligence far beyond human comprehension. Yet he had survived worse situations. He needed a plan. Another ripple appeared in the wall, and 2 more aliens entered. They were guards, taller than humans, armed with metallic tentacle-like weapons wrapped around their forearms. Their eyes blinked slowly, scanning Mark with unnerving precision. Moments later, the first alien returned. "I am Security Coordinator Zix 427 Delta," it said. "You will comply with our procedures while we determine your suitability for Dominion assignments." Mark forced a calm tone. "Zix, surely there's a misunderstanding. Humans have rights recognized by many interstellar treaties. We are explorers, not conquerors." Zix's membrane pulsed rapidly, as if struggling to process the concept. "No treaties exist between humans and the Lefraxian Dominion. This is first contact human. Protocols are clear." Mark suppressed a sigh. He had to think differently. Reasoning alone would not work. The aliens were literal-minded, precise, and rigid. If he wanted to survive, he had to use creativity, and their own rigid thinking, against them. "Zix," Mark said slowly, "I can help you understand humans. But if you only follow literal rules, you will never comprehend our species. There's a better way to learn." The alien tilted its head slightly. "Explain." Mark smiled faintly, the first real sign of hope. "Watch. Study. Observe what humans do in controlled simulations. In other words, our entertainment. Films, stories, games, they reveal our strengths, tactics, and thinking. You will learn more from them than from holding me here." Zix's membrane fluttered. "Simulation, observation, show this human activity?" "Yes," Mark said. "It will teach you about our species without risk. You'll see our courage, adaptability, and how seriously we defend ourselves." Zix paused, eyes blinking rapidly. I will inform the commander. Observation may proceed under supervision." Moments later, Mark was freed from his restraints, though guards still stood at attention. He was escorted to a larger chamber filled with high-ranking Lefraxian officers and scientists. A large viewing screen glowed in the center, and a console appeared at Mark's hands. "You will demonstrate human capabilities?" one of the officers asked. Mark nodded. "Not just capabilities. I'll show you who we are. You will see why underestimating humans is dangerous." The first clip began to play. Scenes of humans fighting, surviving impossible odds, and demonstrating strategy and ingenuity filled the screen. Mark watched the aliens closely. Their metallic skin rippled, membranes pulsing with surprise and confusion. They were beginning to understand, slowly, painfully, that humans were not as weak or predictable as they had assumed. Mark's mind raced. He knew this was only the first step. He had to convince the Lefraxians that humans were clever, resourceful, and not to be trifled with. Survival meant using their own rigid rules against them, teaching them through indirect demonstration rather than direct confrontation. For the first time since capture, hope sparked in his chest. The human spirit, resilient, cunning, unyielding, was about to face its first true test with the Lefraxian Dominion. The prison walls were glowing white, the aliens watched intently, and Mark sat calmly at the console, ready to turn captivity into an advantage. The first lesson in human cleverness was about to begin. Captain Mark Goodwin sat across from Commander Krell 093 Omega, the Lefraxian leader, in a smooth, glowing chamber. Guards stood silently at attention, their metallic tentacle-like weapons folded calmly against their forearms. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of energy flowing through the walls. Mark's mind was sharp. He had survived impossible odds, faced disasters in deep space, and outsmarted adversaries before. But nothing prepared him for this. Aliens who understood nothing figuratively, nothing metaphorically, and took every word literally. "I understand that you consider humans property," Mark began, keeping his tone calm. "But that's a mistake. Humans are explorers. We do not take what is not ours. We follow rules, treaties, and codes of conduct." Krell's 6 eyes blinked rapidly, unsynchronized. His membrane pulsed. "Intent is irrelevant. Action determines consequence. Your ship violated Dominion space. Punishment follows protocol." Mark pinched the bridge of his nose, sighing inwardly. They could not process nuances. Idioms, metaphors, even jokes were meaningless to them. "All right," he said carefully, "let's try it another way. On Earth we have a saying, actions speak louder than words. It means intentions are important too. Punishment should fit the crime, not exceed it." The commander's membrane quivered violently. "Actions speak louder than words. Punishment should fit, exceed? Clarify." Mark realized he was getting through, slowly. The aliens were processing the logic, but their literal minds struggled to grasp human subtleties. "It's a metaphor. We don't always mean what we say directly. Humans communicate through comparison, stories, and figurative language. It helps us convey complex ideas quickly." A guard whispered something to Krell. His membrane pulsed in a rapid pattern. The other officers blinked and quivered, communicating silently in ways Mark could only guess. "Your species communicates inaccurately," one officer finally said. "Claims not matching literal reality." Mark leaned forward. "Yes, that's true. Sometimes we exaggerate or use humor. Sometimes we speak figuratively. It's normal and it's effective. It allows humans to express complicated ideas quickly." Krell's 6 eyes widened in apparent alarm. The commander and his officers began vibrating subtly, a sign of deep confusion or fear. "Human, you claim to communicate without literal precision?" Mark nodded. "Exactly. And sometimes humans appear much stronger, faster, or cleverer than we actually are. Stories exaggerate it. But the exaggeration helps us inspire each other, warn enemies, and teach lessons." The aliens exchanged glances, membranes fluttering rapidly. Even the guards shifted uncomfortably. This was not what they expected. They were trained to deal with literal beings, creatures whose words had direct consequences. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous, uncontrollable. Mark smirked slightly. "I think you're beginning to understand. But there's more. Humans have a lot of defenders, fighters, heroes, specialists, who would act to protect Earth or their comrades. Some are legendary. Some are, well, you might call them superhuman." The commander's membrane quivered violently. "Superhuman? Define." Mark leaned back. "They're exceptional humans with skills, strength, and courage beyond normal limits. They defend their species fiercely. And if Earth finds out you captured one of our ships, well, the response could be extreme." Krell's membrane pulsed faster. The guards twitched. Whispers spread among the officers. Mark had struck a nerve. They had no way of predicting human behavior, and now he had introduced the concept of human unpredictability and power. "One more thing," Mark said, lowering his voice slightly. "Humans also have a sense of humor. We say things that sound impossible or absurd, like exaggerating feats or using jokes. It's part of how we communicate strength and resolve. You may have noticed my earlier explanations." The commander froze. This is concerning. A species that can mislead, exaggerate, and threaten simultaneously." "Exactly," Mark said calmly. "Now, instead of punishing me blindly, maybe you can learn more about us. Observe. Study. You might even survive your first contact better if you do." Krell's 6 eyes blinked in slow, deliberate thought. The guards shifted uneasily. The aliens had no idea how to respond. They were trained for literal obedience and strict protocol. Humans were chaos, wrapped in intelligence, courage, and unpredictability. Mark smiled faintly. For the first time since capture, he felt hope. He was trapped, yes, but the aliens were beginning to see a new reality. Humans were not weak. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of turning disadvantage into opportunity. "Very well," Krell said finally. His membrane quivered. "You will demonstrate human capabilities under supervision. Observation begins immediately." Mark's heart raced. He had a plan. He would show them humans in action, not with weapons, but with ingenuity, strategy, and cultural understanding. The aliens were about to learn why humanity was a force not to be underestimated. The first step in teaching them had begun, and Captain Mark Goodwin was ready to turn captivity into opportunity. Captain Mark Goodwin sat in the large, glowing chamber, facing Commander Krell 093 Omega and several high-ranking Lefraxian officers. Guards remained at attention, but their metallic weapons twitched slightly. The aliens were tense, uneasy, and curious, a perfect audience for Mark's plan. Mark tapped a few buttons on a console, and the large viewing screen flickered to life. "What you are about to see," he said calmly, "is a demonstration of human capabilities. Not all of it is literal, but it will show our strength, strategy, and adaptability." The first clip played. Humans in tight combat, moving with precision and courage, facing impossible odds. Mark watched the aliens' reactions more than the film. Their silvery skin rippled, membranes pulsing rapidly. Their 6 eyes blinked independently, conveying shock, disbelief, and fear. A human named John Wick appeared on the screen, effortlessly defeating armed opponents with clever tactics and deadly precision. One officer gasped when he saw Wick dispatch 3 men with only a pencil. "Impossible," one whispered. "A weapon so small." Mark nodded gravely. "Humans are inventive. We use our minds, our environment, and our tools creatively. We can survive when odds are against us because we adapt. This is just one example." The aliens exchanged glances. Their membranes quivered as if trying to process something beyond their understanding. Mark could see the unease spreading through the group. Next, Mark played clips of Walker Texas Ranger. Humans fighting villains with extraordinary skill, showing resilience, strategy, and determination. Even the guards shifted uncomfortably in their spots, unsure how to react. Mark leaned forward. "You see, humans do not rely only on technology. We are resourceful. We improvise. And when our loved ones or communities are threatened, we act with extreme resolve." The commander's membrane pulsed rapidly. "These humans, they act with precision, strength, and unpredictability. This violates logical expectations of behavior." Mark smiled faintly. "Exactly. Humans cannot always be predicted. Our stories, myths, and legends exaggerate our abilities, but they contain truth too. We fight fiercely for each other. And some humans become legendary." He tapped a few more buttons, bringing up a series of clips about Chuck Norris. The aliens watched in stunned silence as impossible feats were shown. Humans pushing planets, counting to infinity twice, surviving fatal attacks without injury. A scientist in the back quivered violently. "This defies all physical laws," he said weakly. Mark nodded. "Humans are adaptable, courageous, and imaginative. We find ways to survive and to overcome. And if one of our species is threatened, like my ship was, you can expect a response far beyond what you may anticipate." The commander's 6 eyes widened. Membranes flaring, he whispered to his officers. The guards twitched nervously, their weapons shifting as if unsure whether to prepare for combat. Mark realized his plan was working. He continued calmly. "This is not a threat. This is a lesson. Observe carefully. Humans are clever, resourceful, and unpredictable. Underestimating us is dangerous." Krell turned to the officers. "Observation confirmed. Humans are highly capable, far beyond expectations." Mark suppressed a grin. The aliens were shaken. Their rigid logic, their literal understanding, could not fully process humans' creativity, courage, and resilience. "Now," Mark said, standing, "imagine what would happen if Earth learned one of our ships was captured. We do not attack lightly, but we protect fiercely. Humans have defenders, specialists, and legends. We do not surrender easily." The room fell silent. Guards' tentacle weapons twitched. Officers whispered urgently among themselves. The aliens were beginning to grasp what humans could do, though not fully. They could see courage, strategy, and ingenuity in action. They could sense unpredictability and power beyond their calculations. Mark sat back down, calm and measured. He had achieved his goal. The aliens were no longer confident, no longer certain. They were curious, confused, and even fearful. Humanity, once seeming weak and naive, now appeared formidable. For the first time since capture, Mark felt a spark of hope. He had turned captivity into leverage. By showing humans as clever, resourceful, and unpredictable, he had gained the upper hand, not with weapons but with intelligence and culture. The first lesson in human ingenuity was complete. The Lefraxians had learned, painfully and vividly, that humans were not to be underestimated. And Captain Mark Goodwin, against impossible odds, had turned the tide with the most human weapon of all: wit, strategy, and courage. Captain Mark Goodwin sat calmly in the glowing observation chamber, surrounded by the Lefraxian officers. The room hummed softly, energy flowing through the walls, but the atmosphere had changed. Where once there had been strict confidence, now tension and uncertainty hung in the air. The aliens were no longer sure what humans were capable of. Commander Krell 093 Omega leaned forward, membranes fluttering, 6 eyes blinking in rapid, uneven patterns. "Captain Goodwin," he said slowly, "your species, it is remarkable. The information you have provided, humans appear unpredictable and highly capable." Mark nodded. "Thank you, Commander. But there's more you need to understand. Humanity does not surrender. We protect our own and we adapt to threats beyond your calculations. You captured my ship and my crew, but if Earth were aware, the response would be significant." Krell's membrane pulsed rapidly. "Significant? Explain." Mark leaned forward, voice calm but firm. "Humans have defenders, specialists, even legendary figures who act to protect our species. We have strategies, contingency plans, and the ability to innovate under extreme pressure. You may have captured a ship, but that does not mean you have one. Humans are patient, adaptable, and resourceful." The aliens exchanged glances, membranes fluttering nervously. The guards twitched as if sensing danger. Mark could see the shift in confidence. Where before the Lefraxians had believed humans weak and predictable, now they were uncertain, cautious, and even slightly afraid. Mark took a deep breath. "Commander, I am willing to cooperate. I am willing to help you understand humans and avoid unnecessary conflict. But my crew and my ship must be returned safely. It is in everyone's interest." Krell's eyes blinked rapidly. His membrane quivered as he conferred with his officers. "Captain, your argument is logical. You present humans as highly dangerous and unpredictable. Perhaps a treaty of non-aggression would be prudent." Mark allowed himself a small smile. "Exactly. Let us turn this encounter into a step toward mutual understanding, not conflict. A treaty benefits both species. You avoid unnecessary risk and humans avoid unnecessary loss." The commander's 6 eyes focused on Mark. "We will require assurances. Information about your species, your capabilities, your technology. Transparency, and cooperation." Mark nodded solemnly. "Agreed. But transparency goes both ways. Cooperation must be mutual. And you must release my crew unharmed. Only then can trust begin." The Lefraxian officers whispered rapidly among themselves. Their membranes fluttered as they debated. Finally, Krell spoke. "Very well, Captain Goodwin. We will release your crew. We will return your vessel. And we will discuss a treaty of non-aggression and mutual respect. However," his eyes blinked sharply, "any violation, intentional or accidental, will be met with decisive action." Mark's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Understood, Commander. I assure you, humanity values cooperation when it is safe and rational. You will find us capable allies, if treated as equals." Moments later, the Lefraxian guards escorted Mark to a secure docking chamber. There he saw his crew, unharmed but shaken, being freed from energy restraints. Rodriguez, Harris, and the rest of the Horizon crew exchanged relieved glances and hurried to their captain. Mark smiled faintly. "Welcome back, team. Let's get our ship ready to depart. And let's make sure these aliens understand one simple rule: never underestimate humans." Engineer Capper shook his head. "Captain, you actually scared the aliens with movies and stories?" Mark chuckled softly. "Sometimes brains are stronger than weapons, Capper. Let's just hope they learned their lesson." As the crew worked to restore the Horizon systems, Mark reflected on the events. The Lefraxians had underestimated humans, their literal thinking making them vulnerable to surprise. Mark had turned their rigid logic against them, showing that courage, ingenuity, and understanding of human culture could be a weapon as deadly as any starship cannon. By the time the Horizon was ready for departure, the Lefraxian Dominion had prepared the necessary documents for safe passage. The Treaty of Non-Aggression and Mutual Respect was drafted. The aliens had learned a valuable lesson about humanity, one they would not soon forget. Mark took the captain's chair, watching the stars outside the viewport. His crew was safe, the Horizon ready, and humanity had made a powerful first impression. The universe was vast, full of danger, mystery, and civilizations yet to be discovered. And humanity, resilient, clever, unpredictable, was ready for all of it. For Captain Mark Goodwin, the first contact with the Lefraxian Dominion had started as a disaster, but it had ended with victory. Not through brute force, not through technology alone, but through intelligence, courage, and the uniquely human ability to turn disadvantage into opportunity. The Horizon engaged its engines, leaving the alien sector behind. Stars streaked past, and the crew settled into a mix of relief and quiet pride. Humanity had survived its first true test in alien space, and shown that even in the face of superior technology, the human spirit was never to be underestimated. The Horizon floated silently in the docking chamber as the Lefraxian officers completed the final preparations for the humans' release. Captain Mark Goodwin watched them closely, noting every detail. The aliens had learned much, but he knew the lessons were only partially understood. Humanity was clever, unpredictable, and relentless, and they would not forget that. "Captain, all systems restored," Engineer Capper reported, his hands wiping sweat from his brow. "Shields, engines, weapons, everything is green. We're ready to depart." Mark nodded. "Good work, Capper. Let's make sure we leave a strong impression." The crew assembled in the bridge, eyes bright with relief and pride. Lieutenant Rodriguez leaned over her console, scanning the alien docking systems. "Captain, the documents for safe passage are ready. The Lefraxians want nothing more than to avoid further conflict." Mark's lips curved into a small, satisfied smile. "Then let's honor that, and show them exactly what humans are capable of. But in a peaceful way." As the Horizon prepared to leave, Commander Krell 093 Omega and his high-ranking officers appeared on the viewscreen. The silver-skinned aliens radiated a mix of curiosity, respect, and apprehension. Mark leaned forward. "Commander Krell," he began, voice calm but firm, "we leave your sector with one promise. Humans value cooperation and respect. Treat us fairly and you will find allies. Underestimate us, and you will face consequences you cannot imagine." The commander's membrane pulsed rapidly, his 6 eyes blinking independently. He seemed to weigh Mark's words carefully. "Captain Goodwin, your species is remarkable. We will honor your departure. Perhaps, in time, understanding will grow between our peoples." Mark inclined his head. "I hope so, Commander. For both our sakes." With that, the Lefraxian stepped back, allowing the Horizon to glide smoothly out of the docking chamber. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the ship engaged its engines. Crew members breathed a collective sigh of relief. They had survived and they had made a lasting impression. "Captain," Commander Harris said quietly, "you actually scared them with movies and stories? I never thought I'd see that work in real life." Mark chuckled softly. "It wasn't just the movies, Harris. It was understanding how they think, and using it to our advantage. Humans have always been creative, adaptable, and resourceful. Sometimes brains are the strongest weapon." Lieutenant Rodriguez nodded. "And it worked. They respect us now, at least enough to let us go." Mark gazed out at the endless stars. "Respect is earned, Rodriguez, not given. Today we earned it. Humanity is unpredictable, clever, and willing to fight when necessary, but we also value peace. The universe needs to know that." As the Horizon glided through the sector, systems humming smoothly, Mark thought about the first contact. What began as a disaster, a violent ambush, the loss of control, the capture of his crew, had become an opportunity. Humanity had demonstrated its ingenuity, courage, and resilience, all without firing a single shot. The crew worked efficiently, checking systems, plotting courses, and sharing quiet words of encouragement. The bond between them felt stronger than ever. They had faced the unknown together, survived, and proven that humans were not to be underestimated. Capper leaned against the console, shaking his head. "Captain, I still can't believe it. We used stories and exaggerations to intimidate aliens, and it worked." Mark smiled. "Stories, legends, films, they're part of what makes humans strong. We inspire each other, we warn each other, and sometimes, we teach lessons to those who think they can control us." The Horizon left the contested sector behind, moving toward open space. The stars seemed endless, full of danger, mystery, and the promise of new adventures. Humanity had survived its first real test among alien civilizations, and the galaxy would take notice. Mark leaned back in his chair, his eyes on the stars. "We're explorers, not conquerors," he said quietly. "But never forget, humans are clever, adaptable, and unstoppable when they have to be. Today we showed that. And the universe had better remember it." The crew exchanged smiles and quiet nods. Hope, pride, and determination filled the bridge. The Horizon sailed into the unknown, leaving behind confusion and newfound respect among the Lefraxians. For Captain Mark Goodwin and his crew, the first contact with the Lefraxian Dominion had ended in triumph. Not with weapons, not with brute force, but with courage, intelligence, and the uniquely human ability to turn a dire situation into victory. And as the